Recently, France has been swayed by large-scale protests carried out by tens of thousands of its citizens in response to a series of economic reforms since the new government came to power in 2017. A growing mistrust amid the tax cuts on corporations and high earners while raising taxes for the working class has prompted the people to put pressure on the government to make big changes. Emmanuel Macron founded the centrist movement named En Marche in April 2016 and, much to the surprise of many, won the elections the following year. The French saw promise in Macron's manifesto, which promised significant economic reforms backed up by his relevant experiences both in the public and private sectors. The fragile economy and mistrust for the previous regime left the people with no options but to take a risk instead of voting far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. However, as the recent Yellow Vests movement spread out in France, the truths behind the reforms have only just started to get publicity. I'm your host Kasim, welcome to another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss the politics of Emmanuel Macron, but just before we start, we encourage you to visit our Patreon page and consider becoming our member. This would significantly help our channel and help us make more videos. François Hollande, who preceded Macron as president, failed to live up to expectations, having faced major opposition from his proposed economic and employment reforms. He faced criticism for many issues, including failing to address difficulties in integrating immigrants into the French society and even pandering to the right with his comments on stripping French citizens with the dual nationalities of their citizenship following the high-profile terrorist attacks that shook the country, including the Charlie Hebdo shooting in 2015 and the Nice truck attack in 2016. Hollande decided not to rerun for the election due to a combination of social, political and economic frailties and the huge mistrust shared amongst the French citizens. Macron, on the other hand, was appointed Deputy Secretary General to Hollande in 2012, while also serving as Minister of Economy, Industry and Digital Affairs between 2014 and 2016, where he formulated several business reforms to aid the economy. Macron was born in Amiens, France, and is an alumnus of the elite École Nationale d'Administration. He showed great aptitude in the areas of literature, politics and theatre at an early age and had been able to forge powerful connections during his time as an inspector at the French Finance Ministry during Nicolas Sarkozy's tenure as president. However, he switched civil service to work in investment banking at Rothschild & Co., where he swiftly rose up the ranks to become managing director before being appointed as François Hollande's staff. His most significant contribution in investment banking was his crucial role in advising Nestlé on its $12 billion acquisition of a unit of Pfizer in 2012, which earned the nickname the Mozart of Finance. Despite public protests, the business reform package that he introduced in 2015 as finance minister was forced through Parliament by then Prime Minister Manuel Valls, who invoked the Special Article 49.3 procedure, which also received criticism from within the ruling Socialist Party. However, he soon resigned in 2016 and founded En Marche. He announced his candidacy for the 2017 presidential election. His manifesto attracted a lot of attention and was even able to gain support from both the left and the right, especially through his proposals that aimed at lowering housing and corporate taxes, reforming pensions and welfare, and allocating substantial resources. He became France's youngest ever president by defeating Le Pen in 2017. He had received 66.1% of the 47 million votes cast. He had never held an elected post, but it did not seem very difficult for him to achieve his objective. The biggest test and also Macron's main objective has been to overhaul France's economy. He inherited a very poorly performing economy from his predecessor, with the biggest challenges being 10% unemployment and nearly 1 in 4 among under 25s, bloated public spending, which was 56% of GDP compared with 44% in Germany and 39% in the UK, and low economic growth. His twin aims are to boost investment and set up a new growth model that is both good for social mobility and the environment. Macron has been advocating a Nordic-style economic model that mixes spending cuts of €60 billion with a €50 billion stimulus package over the same period. The spend and save system that Macron plans is meant to mix targeted public spending with fiscal discipline as a Nordic model. Besides lowering the corporate tax rate from 33 to 25%, he also has plans to slash 120,000 jobs from France's bloated civil service, while lowering the tax bill of companies and households by 20 billion euros. These are part of the major economic reforms that Macron has planned, while making France stick to the EU government deficit limit of 3% of GDP. In light of the recent terrorist attacks that have rattled France and resulted in the loss of hundreds of lives, Macron has proposed an increase in defence and policing by recruiting 10,000 new police officers and expand prison capacities. He also advocates the idea of an EU army and has been promoting joint military projects and setting up a permanent European headquarter. Some of his notable plans for governance includes reducing the number of lawmakers by a third in both the Senate and the National Assembly, banning the hiring of family members as assistants of lawmakers, and banning consulting activity for people holding elected office. France's commitment to the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement has been among the key global issues that Macron has promised to back up and promote since his early days in the office. When it comes to foreign relations, he has voiced support for multilateral institutions such as the UN Security Council, however also supporting the promotion of the French language and Francophone institutions, as in his words, an essential vector of our influence and a weapon against the spread of radicalism. He stands strong against the Syrian regime led by Bashar al-Assad and wants him to answer for his crimes before an international tribunal, while being a strong critic of Russian policy, backing EU sanctions following the Ukraine crisis. Macron is pro-EU and has campaigned for greater cooperation and integration within the EU on fiscal, environmental and social regulation. In his European agenda, he has expressed his plans towards a common fiscal policy, a joint finance minister, implementation of the banking union, and bolstered bilateral relations with Germany. Macron came to power at a problematic time. He faced a massive restructuring of regional powers following the Brexit referendum, as well as US President Donald Trump's reshuffling of American interests. These major changes made the situation a little more difficult from the very start, and especially after the shocking withdrawal of the US from the Paris Climate Accord, a decision made by Trump himself, who does not believe in climate change. This prompted Macron to offer France as a second homeland to climate researchers. One of the first things he did was make a state visit immediately after his election to meet Angela Merkel in his quest for improved Franco-German relations, and since forged a strong relationship with Merkel and agreed on a common roadmap for Europe. However, Merkel had a more cautious approach than Macron when it comes to major issues concerning the EU. He has always been vocal about increased European cooperation on many issues and has been pushing for a European army to improve security in the EU, with Merkel quick to endorse Macron's plan. And Macron also voiced strong interests to pursue security dialogue with Russia, seeking to improve EU-Russian relations, especially in terms of security. Macron had been quick in pressing for reforms as soon as he took charge, with one of his first significant contributions being against mass corruption and nepotism in French politics, and introducing a ban on elected representatives from hiring family members. But in May 2018, a political movement arose that challenged Macron's economic reforms. It has been named Mouvement des Gilets Jaunes, or the Yellow Vests movement, where demonstrations started on 17th November 2018, months after it was created. The main protagonists of the now ongoing movement are the ordinary working and middle-class French citizens who strongly feel that Macron is not the leader for the ordinary working class. What triggered the movement was the proposal to keep increasing a direct tax on fuel as well as the carbon tax. Although Macron stated that these were part of his plans to reduce fossil fuel reliance, it has been widely criticised as an act of taxing the poor to tackle climate change. In his first budget, Macron's business-friendly government had proposed trimming corporate rates and a wealth tax on the rich, explaining that boosting investment will aid the economy, however also increasing certain taxes such as one on low-income pensioners. Whilst giving tax breaks to big corporations and his plans of charging lower taxes on high-paid workers in certain industries has garnered mistrust from ordinary citizens and political rivals alike, with the left wing calling him a hero to the rich. He also moved to loosen hiring and firing regulations on companies to improve France's paralysed labour market. Protests have been going on for over a month, and hundreds of thousands of French citizens have taken part in what seems to be an anti-Macron rebellion, with the Premier making a U-turn by suspending the proposed tax hike amid the protests that have turned violent. French authorities have deployed nearly 100,000 security forces during several days of protests, detaining thousands and using anti-riot weapons such as tear gas against protesters. In a very recent bid to end the standoff, Macron announced a package of measures for low-income workers estimated by economists to cost up to €15 billion. Besides suspending the fuel tax hike plans for 6 months, he also announced raising the minimum wage by €100 per month from 2019, while scrapping the recent increase in social security taxes on pensioners earning less than €2,000. The protests are still ongoing, with protesters expecting their 42 directives to be accepted. However, recently it has garnered criticism for a lack of leadership and organisation, and the violence by protesters and the use of force by police has already resulted in over 500 injuries. Despite Macron announcing several major changes bowing down to protesters, there are many demands yet to be met, and it is not clear when or how the Yellow Vests movement will end. Macron is poised to become Europe's next leader as Merkel makes her exit from politics. Falling out of favour may mean nationalists such as Marine Le Pen gaining support, and with the rise of the populism in Europe in the past few years, it may not come as a surprise if France leans towards the far right. A major shift in powers may make the situation in the region volatile, and with France being a major power in the EU, and with the UK poised to officially leave the EU in a few months, it would cause a major restructuring in regional powers and interests. Most concerning of all, with countries such as Italy, Hungary and Poland having already given in to populism, a major power joining their ranks will shake up the EU and prove to be a major challenge in the future of the EU. The current situation and its developments in France will have a significant impact on the economic and political stability in the rest of Europe. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, we encourage you to visit our Patreon page and consider becoming our member. This would significantly help our channel and allow us to remain independent in our political research. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out the important links in the description. Also be sure to leave your comments and questions and we'll try our best to answer them. Thanks for watching again and see you next time.